Welcome to Season 4 of the NAC 4 Business Podcast.
Today's show is brought to you by Sterling Grace Technologies, and full disclosure, they handle IT for NAC 4 Business too. Cybersecurity, network support, custom software, cloud backups, all built for small businesses that don't have an internal tech team. Good people, practical solutions. Link is in the show notes.
Question to the audience. What if the thing protecting your business is also the thing slowing it down? Most small business owners feel the tension every week. Today's guest has spent 20 years on both sides of it. Margaret Dibor is the co-founder and chief information security officer at Dima Risk Solutions, a cybersecurity firm specializing in risk management. She's based in Vancouver. She helps small, mid-sized businesses stay safe, build trust, and grow without fear of a cyber risk. Margaret has 20 years of global experience across telecom, education, healthcare, and government. She sits on the ISACA Vancouver chapter board. Her platform is the Dima Risk Management Platform, which helps end users. What makes Margaret different is how she explains it. She turns hard problems into simple steps a business owner can actually use. Her story started in Poland, moved through England, and now she lives in Canada. Find her at dimarisksolutions.com or on LinkedIn at Margaret Dibor. And Dibor is spelled D-I-B-O-R.
Yeah.
Margaret, absolute pleasure having you here today. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, Margaret, what's happening in your space right now?
So we launching the platform, which is I am very happy about that. We launching next week, and the pilot would continue for like next 2 months. And we're looking right now for people who would like to be part of that process.
And what type of businesses should actually pay attention to this?
So mainly we address two highly regulated sectors, so education, healthcare, health tech, fintech, finance. But when we speak about small businesses, it's health tech and fintech.
Excellent. Well, let's go to how you came to this point. You moved from Poland to England to Canada. What did each move teach you? Like, what did you gain from each of the different countries?
So definitely it's different cultures, different approach to socially. There is a lot really changes when you look in like Poland culture and then in England. England has a lot social clues that you have to learn how to deal with it. What I learned from that process, that was as I moved to England, everything started moving very fast. And I realized that in Poland, I designed telecommunication networks. However, when I moved to England, I realized that I can't really be in that space anymore because I am not good at coding and everything moving to cloud. And I was just specialized on infrastructure, on-prem more like. So I started looking for my niche, and that's basically where I land with cybersecurity. And when I got into NHS project, I really love the complexity of governance, risk, and compliance. But that's governance, risk, and compliance bring you to that higher level of information security and data protection aspects. And I really love that, especially when I work for like big organizations like NHS. So it's national healthcare provider in UK. There's really very complex environment. And via those experience, I learned that holistic approach to data. And first, you have to understand really the business to be able to protect the data. So that holistic approach was really very crucial and very important. So that was from like professional level experience. And from personal, I would say I learned quite a lot. I really embrace all that British culture, and I really love it. My company gave me the opportunity for the transfer from England to Canada.
What made you migrate from CISO over to Dima Risk Solutions? What was the impetus from leaving? Because you're now an entrepreneur, and you've made a platform which is in pilot mode. What pushed you from one to the other?
I was always in that enterprise world for many years anyway, because in London I have also my business. I ran my business for almost 8 years. Then I moved, as I finished, I did my master degree there in London Metropolitan University and decided basically to move again to corporate world. So I have those switches. Like in Poland, I work for big companies. Then I moved to England, where I ran my business. Then again in England, I moved to corporate world. And from corporate world, I was brain basically by switch from England to Canada. So when during all that journey, I would say, I started realizing one thing, that I want to have something that is mine, that I work for, I very often work under NDAs. And when my contract with CGI, and I realized that basically I really have problem to come to like be visible in my space in cybersecurity, because everything what I did was under ADS, everything was confidential. So basically you work and what you do is not visible and it's not really yours. And other thing was that I felt that the cybersecurity, the landscape of cybersecurity in Canada, I spoke with many small businesses and they really have the issues really how to tackle really the security. So I saw like kind of opportunity for myself to create something that is my own instead of being and work for someone else. And other aspect is about the platform itself. So last year I created really the concept. That was pure concept. That concept was awarded by committee, Web Summit committee. So I get to Alpha program just with the concept. We build up quickly MVP just to show up on the Web Summit, which is again was a very good experience and give even more assurance that what I built and all my experience combined can be really utilized to simplify certain things that especially small medium businesses seems consider as too overwhelming and don't know even how to approach.
Do you find that small businesses in this space are over-equipped but underprotected?
Yeah, very often. So that's also from my experience. Because this is kind of mentality. A lot of people still seems consider security or everything, look for data security from the angle of cybersecurity. So only technical controls or that defensive angle. However, right now is more about resilience really, because your environment has to be quite wide open. You have so many external factors over your business and so many people has access really to your data. How you protect that? So you have to build up some mechanisms and some ways to protect and be resilient over all those factors that basically cooperate with your business or can play against your business. So resilience become really very important. And I think this is the biggest misconception what people really have. And yeah, I saw many businesses that they have tools, they have everything, and they still have been hacked because sometimes you can't have tools, but you not have really people who can manage those tools and monitor them properly. So that's there is so many factors that you really have to consider. And the tools is not always solution. You have to remember that, like, for example, in AI right now, especially with AI tools, you can just provide some sensitive information to AI tool and the data is just there. You can't retrieve it anymore. So that's also a very important factor. And how you prevent that? You not prevent that by tools as much. You have to prevent that by, build up awareness, culture really within your business around the people that dealing with all those tools. There is other mechanisms also you can use, fair enough. But overall, that awareness has to be very, very strongly rooted. Yeah, that's getting really quite complex topic to, on that angle to be resilient.
So, for a company that has sensitive information, because we talked earlier, it could be in finance, it could be in healthcare, to name a few, and there's others out there. What is the ROI? Is the ROI your insurance policy? Is the ROI, oh my gosh, the barn door is open and the horses are out in the field, and closing the barn door is a little too late. Where do you see the and reputation loss? But where do you see the ROI if you're going to apply dollars? Is it in insurance coverage? Is it in damages? Or is it in just smart business? Or is there another ROI, return on investment, that factors in here?
So everything depends on the business and really the business environment. So the most critical is to understand the business environment. Who has our data? Who has access to that data? And be able to define their ROI. You have to look at into all those outside and inside factors that has impact on your business and understand those factors. It can be different things, but definitely, for example, the fines. So if we not implement certain controls and we get breach, how much the fines for non-compliance would cost. So that would be the one factor to look at. And then you look at how much implementation of those controls cost. So you're basically weighting the both. And yeah, when we implement those controls, how much physically we can save money. Obviously, there is other factors like reputation, for example, or there can be other factors like documents, organization documents, business secrets, for example. If that document is lost, what's happened then? How you value basically that in contrary to certain controls that you have to implement. And that not would always would be technical because we're speaking also about awareness training, for example, and reputational damage, for example, how you weigh that. So there is number of factors that you have to look at and understand from the business perspective to be able to consider ROI and
Yeah,
volume of the data even. So
it almost makes sense. If you're getting people to sign an NDA, then you want to protect the information too. You can't tell. I guess AI doesn't sign an NDA.
yeah.
So walk us through what the DEMA risk solutions process looks like. What does it do? Like, so someone says, "Hey, I'm interested." What happens next?
So we offer services and obviously right now we offer platforms. So overall, we help businesses, first of all, to establish what is their really risk profile, because that's the most important. That's, like in common sense overall for any business. First, you have to understand the risk. We just look at from the risk from the data perspective. What is risk to your data? When you're doing in finance, you look in what the risk to your finance, that you run out of the cash, for example. So we look at from that data perspective. What is your risk to the data? What data do you operate on? What really security do you need? What do you want to protect? What is the most important assets that you really have to protect? It's reputation or it's your business secrets, customers' information, and so on. And then obviously all that regulatory mandates, because depend on the jurisdiction, there is always different regulatory mandates and based on the sector. So healthcare has their own mandates, finance has their own mandates. Then obviously you look at into business strategy. When you have to look in business strategy, because if you are company that, let's say, you want to get contracts with the bigger bank, how we can do that? You have to plan ahead. You have to understand what really those banks have, what requirements they have, and what you have to meet. And how to do that, you have to understand, okay, that we are here now, and there is the maybe steps that we can take now to get where we want and build up that plan and build up that strategy. That, therefore, the strategy for the data protection, it's as important as business plan, for example, because it's pretty much supposed to be integrated part of the business plan, especially for organizations that operate on data, operate on customer data, operate on sensitive data.
Do you find that, say, someone comes up and they go through the platform? Is it just the assessment, or is it also you provide the cure? Yeah, in other words, going, okay, like a patient, hey, you're sick. Yeah, you're not doing well. You need to work out. You need to exercise, lose some weight, get some more sleep. The usual things. Do you come in and just provide the diagnosis, or do you also provide the cure in the process or the treatment?
You can say that we are like a little bit a doctor clinic in this case. So we assess, we diagnose, and we provide some cure. And we can hold your hand later also if needed.
Do you find that people come to you after the horse has left the barn scenario? In other words, something has gone terribly sideways, and now they realize it. Its reputation or the cost of the fines are already in play. You also find that they will come back also later on and say, "Listen, Margaret, help me. I've I've been led astray. I haven't done the right thing." Do you also
Okay.
handle post-apocalyptic moments?
Yes. So I think that's the very often scenario, especially for smaller businesses. When you develop the business, when you start offering the services and so on, security is kind of a little bit afterthoughts, especially in some countries. Everything depends on legislation, really, and how the privacy mandates are, how strong the privacy mandates are. So if they are more relaxed, then basically that scenario is very often scenario that you're dealing with. And there is like what I supposed to plug, what I supposed to tool buy to, just fix the issue. And they very often doesn't like the response that is not magic word. It basically is a process that you have to go through. You have to understand certain things. The same is when company want to implement AIs. There is no those scenarios, course already left. But companies, they still learning that before they start implementing something, there's supposed to be that, the process of really understanding why I'm implementing that. In fact, we had workshop last week, and there was very interesting discussion about that. That sometimes companies they want to be seems like very innovative. That's why they implement a lot AI tools and other stuff. But the question is about usability of that, first of all, and secondly, how you can manage those tools and stay secure and provide that security also to your clients, to people that you serve. So yeah, that was very interesting discussion really, because people sometimes is just like rushing to how was reference that one participant said it's like buying the Ferrari. Okay, you buying the Ferrari, you really want to show off because you have it and you're very happy that you have it, but you can't drive really properly, so that's gonna end up badly. So that's another interesting reference. Yeah, so definitely it's still the process to like learn for people to learn and understand that cybersecurity and data protection is not something that it's just something on the side sitting and it's forced by some or like government to do it, and it's really without any particular purpose. So that shift with mentality has to happen. That basically that data protection is really has sense and really has purpose. Very, very defined purpose.
Most owners get something wrong the first 2 years, and sometimes it's a matter of, do people do it themselves? I think might be the first issue they might be having, or do they seek help? When should a person seek help?
So the most important, I would say, obviously, maybe not when the business is very small, but it's really depend on the business, depend on the goals, depend on the business objectives. Because if the business even is small, is SaaS, but they developing product and they know that they want to go and sell that product to the bigger player, let's say that banks, hospitals, whatever. So they supposed to think about security as the building, because that's what I saw also many times when, during years that company building something. And then it's like, we have problems because we hadn't embedded with our development circle some security measures. So our product is not compliant. And because it's not compliant, we have to back to the board and basically doing everything from scratch. So again, everything depends on the business. But on the other hand, when the business is usually, that's very usual case. A business can be like developing and already they have some clients and they start drafting basically that very clear the goals and the objectives. And that usually is the point where they're supposed to seek for help, or they supposed to just build up that very clear strategy and understanding the risk profiles, understanding where the issues are, what they really protecting as they developing. That's the very important part. Because if you start scale without that overview, it's the same like you not have any direct business plan. You're just building the business without business plan. You're doing something, but without any, like oversight, any direction, any corrections. So that can go good or can go very bad. That's pretty much where we are. A lot of businesses, when they need client acquisitions, when they on that growth stage, or there's also change management. with how they operate on data, because before they have small volume of data. Right now that volume is getting at large and other stuff. So there is really, again, number of factors that you have to look at. But the most important to understand the business profile, understand the business profile and the risk associated with that business profile. And what is the next goal? What is the next objectives?
One of the things a family member of mine works in healthcare, and the province works what they call a TRA, threat risk assessment. Is that part of it? And I'm going to assume it's more not only the IT part, but is that a threat risk assessment, or is it even more than that?
It's really more than that, but risk assessment is part of the process. That's definitely the risk assessment. It's very important part of the process.
What's the frequency of reassessing your setup?
So when we deal with sensitive data or privacy data from the privacy aspects, usually it's at least once per year. So you're doing what is called the PIA, Data Privacy Impact Assessment, on PIA, Privacy Impact Assessments. However, where ongoing changes happen within organization, then that's supposed to be even happening on the more frequent basis. So can be every 3 months, depend on the change management and those processes.
So if you're working with a company, here's a case in point. If I take a credit card payment, the old fashioned way, literally the old fashioned way was you take an imprint and it's a piece of paper. Not terribly secure because you'd have a signature and so forth. And life's evolved. Now we do this online. And it's gotten to such a point now that point of sale terminals will handle the encryption of the data. And in fact, if you're doing an online sales, you're not actually holding on to the credit card information the other company is. Having a circumstance like that, credit card payment is an example. What happens if you're handling sensitive information, but you're also working with another agency, another company? And now you have 2 points of contact. In this case, it's financial data and someone's credit card or banking information. You're not storing it. They are. How do you do that assessment? Is there some sort of certificate of happiness and security that they offer you? And then you go, yes, I've got that. That's covered. If things fall totally apart, it's on them. Or how do you reconcile that together?
So we're speaking about the vendor due diligence, and we're speaking about vendor assessments. So that is third party that operate on our behalf. So first of all, our responsibility is to be sure that they are secure. So there is, for example, for finances, what we call PCI Day. So one of the certifications that's really bring assurance that the company is compliant and know how to operate security of the data and meet all the standards. So this is the one thing. But you, as a company who, the other company collect money on your behalf. So you are the data owner. You still data owner and they are data processors. And in this case, when they are data processors, your responsibility is to be sure that they are secure. So that therefore we spoke about the vendor assessment and validate that third parties. That's very important. Validate third parties, have the agreement how that data is supposed to be secure. So we have to build up the construct, how from our perspective, that data has to be handled with all the standards included and according to the standards. And we have to just have that confirmation that they have the PCI DSS, for example. So this is assurance for us that we have contract with them and they told us that they compliant with that particular certificate. So that means they obliged to follow the rules, what we said and what we agree on.
So we're talking about companies that are in country. What happens if the company has an office outside of the country in another lands? Which almost brings me to the next question. Also, data sovereignty.
Yeah.
How does that all fold into this grand story?
Yeah, so data sovereignty, it's very important aspects, and I have very interesting discussion lately around AI, especially in data sovereignty. So a lot of countries really have very strange regulations regarding that. So if you are a company and you want that, you collect data, let's say in Canada, and you want to bring that data operate in elsewhere, you have to have a really clean consent from from people who give you access to that data, that you would be able to do that. So there is number of privacy regulations that basically organization has to follow in this case. And in some cases, like for example in Europe, you have to have literally shop company open in Europe to be able to collect data from EU citizens. And there is those additional regulations. As I say, even you operate internationally, you have to get that consent and be very clear with your consent of data collection that you're saying that that data might appear or be processed elsewhere.
Wow. Would that also influence intellectual property? I mean, it's one thing to know, okay, here's Bernie's social insurance number, here's Bernie's Visa card number, here's Bernie's address, here's Bernie's date of birth, because, impersonation could be a risk factor.
Yeah.
But let's say Bernie has the recipe to the ingredients of the greatest cookie in the world, and everybody loves Bernie's cookie. Is that treated the same way, or is that treated differently, or versus, say, medical or financial data?
So depend on the country really, because each country has a little bit different regulations and treat that a little bit differently. So even in Canada, for example, like intellectual property, yes, they have very clearly defined what can be registered as IP, what can be just as, for example, trademark. Big distinction between what IP is in Canada and, for example, what IP can be in Europe. So it's really depend on the country where you register, and based on that one, how basically your intellectual property is treated.
So at the end of the day, if the client is in the EU, European Union, do you base your protections based on the most stringent of wherever you're doing business versus elsewhere where there is no stringent, life's easygoing per se, and leaky for lack of better words, versus let's say in the EU? Do you
Yeah.
base everything? Do you structure it that way?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it's working. That's why when I did this with some clients, they had problems because it's like they operate, for example, in Quebec, that has quite stringent law, and also about the sovereignty of the data that is collected there. And then they operate also in New York, where the law is quite relaxed in comparison to Quebec. And then they move to California, where again the law is quite strong, and there is CCPA with quite a lot mandates regarding, how you operate on customers' data and so on. So when you move, for example, that direction, you have to just build up all your existence around the strongest laws, because when you look at the weakest, you're really in trouble. That was very interesting, really, cases what I deal with. And the question was like, so why I supposed to follow like even for New York, why I supposed to follow those stringent law when there is very relaxed one? But overall, you have to have, because you have other two jurisdictions that the law is very, very strange and very particular how you can handle customers' data, how you operate on that data. So yeah, so you just have to go with those rules also on another region that is more relaxed, let's say.
If I'm a company or a client of a company, how do I know they're taking care of the data? How do I know they have a good plan? Is there any tell that you'd find or see, either a certificate, a certain denotation on the website, or a practice that would be a tell to say, listen, these folks actually do a good job? I'm going to assume financial and health would always be almost like instant on, because the privacy commissioner in the province of Ontario or privacy commissioner for Canada would go be on your case pretty quick. But how do you tell that they're going to be responsible? Is there any indication?
Would say first of all look at into privacy policies. So some companies has already like real privacy policies, and some companies just have like you know slap of the rules, I would say. So yeah, it's that can be good indicator already how they potentially treat customers data. And and you also see sometimes you subscribe to some companies, for example for the emails, and then you unsubscribe and you're still getting messages. So that means that company doesn't follow the rules and doesn't respect the customer's will. So overall, because there is always rules that you're supposed to collect as a least amount that is needed for your operation. That's one. And secondly, you shouldn't operate or hold anyone's data if they don't want to. So if I unsubscribe, does mean that I don't want to be longer in your process, wherever it is. But if they not follow that rule, that means that they not respect the customer really. And that's happened very often.
So I guess that's the currency, trust, right? You're building level of trust. So who's most at risk of going broke then in this particular game of currency with trust?
In practice, I would say the smallest companies, the small and medium companies, they really, first of all, you really have to build that trust, and that's taking time. And if you are small or medium, you very easy can lose that trust if your data can be leaked and so on. And you operate on the less tools than enterprises has to basically even, be able to mitigate certain issues. So yeah, and enterprises, even they hacked, it's like, you know, yeah, WestJet was hacked, but that doesn't really mean that all people all of a sudden start withdraw and stop using WestJet. In the other situation, when they were like very small company just starting, and that situation would happen, probably nobody will use that company anymore. So that's basically is two sides of the situation. So definitely the trust is harder to build for small and medium companies.
So, folks, we're getting some really good insights about what keeping your data secure, what it kind of involves with. And Margaret and her team ran a recent security awareness masterclass for small business owners. And if that sounds useful, reach out to Margaret at DIMARiskSolutions.com, and DIMA is DIMA Risk Solutions and the .com. She also has a quick mention. She's doing a pilot coming up. So again, reach out if you're a small, medium business, especially if you're in the sectors where finance, health, any of those areas with high regulation components attached to it. You might want to just tap into this because this might be a real boon for you, and it can save you some really ugly moments, especially with your clients, risk of fines, if you're an ISO certification, all these things. It just saves you a lot of headaches. And I want to say thank you to Willie Nicol for the introduction. Willie's over in Scotland, and so he's a coach, and he introduced Margaret to the Knack for Business, so we really appreciate it. Margaret helps the small to mid-sized business owners take the fear out of the keeping their data safe. You don't want to have a leaky ship, right? And she does it by turning a noisy, scary topic into a few clear moves that you can actually take action on and be direct about. She's not selling fear, she's handing back control. And that's really kind of key. It helps you in your reputation, and it helps you maintain your business because it's continuity. To reach us, I want to say reach out to knackforbusiness.com. That's NACK, the number 4, business.com. We have a chatbot. You can plug a question in to find out about our other conversations or book a call with us. Margaret, I want to say thank you so much. I really appreciated your time today.
Thank you very much, and really thank you very much for having me.
Our pleasure.
Everything you heard today is for educational purposes only. It's not professional advice. Before you act on anything, talk to a certified expert in your area. Your accountant, your lawyer, someone who knows your situation. We share perspectives. You make the decisions. Want more? Head over to blog.knack4business.com, packed with practical episodes on AI, marketing, leadership, and growth. No fluff, just the good stuff. Subscribe while you're there. Until next time, keep building.